Jimin reveals Jungkook is hiding something from Taehyung, but when confronted, Jungkook breaks down in tears. What secret is too painful to speak? I saw what you did, Jungkook. You need to tell Taehyung, or I will. The words hung heavy in the air, sharp as a blade drawn too quickly. The rehearsal room, usually buzzing with music and laughter, was dead silent. Only the low hum of the amplifier remained, forgotten in the corner. Sweat clung to Jungkook's neck as he slowly turned to face Jimin, his hands trembling slightly, whether from fear or guilt. Even he couldn't tell. Outside, the Seoul skyline blinked with the indifferent glow of 1,000 neon signs, but inside, everything felt dim and breathless. Jimin stood in front of the door like a barrier, his voice no longer soft or melodic. It was steady, cold. A tone Jungkook had rarely heard from him. I didn't mean for it to happen, Jungkook whispered, his voice cracking. Tu was going to tell him, but I... But you what? Jimin snapped, stepping forward. You think hiding it makes it better? You think your silence will protect him? The younger man shrank slightly, his dark eyes filling with something primal, shame, maybe, or fear. Not the kind of fear one feels when facing punishment, but the fear of breaking something that can never be repaired. He wanted to speak, truly, but instead, he collapsed into the chair behind him, hands covering his face. Silent tears began to fall, soaking through the cracks between his fingers. Jimin's breath caught. He hadn't expected this. Not from Jungkook. There had been signs, sure missed calls, unread messages, too long glances during rehearsals, and the way Jungkook had flinched every time Taehyung walked into the room. But this collapse? It shook him. Jungkook, he said again, this time softer, but the boy said nothing. His sobs were quiet, but they cut through the silence like a dull knife across skin, messy, painful, inevitable. From behind the one-way glass, the studio manager watched them. He said nothing, but his fingers tapped rapidly on the wooden armrest of his chair, observing, waiting, recording. No one really knew what he was there for anymore, not even him. Meanwhile, Taehyung stood 2 doors down, laughing with a stylist about a misplaced earring. The storm that was unfolding in the next room hadn't touched him yet. He had no idea, but he would. Eventually. Jungkook remembered the moment it all began, not the act itself, but the decision to hide it. It wasn't even a decision, really, more like a reflex. Protect Taehyung, he'd told himself. Shield him from this, from the truth that would ruin everything they'd built. But the truth had its own gravity. It pulled everything toward it, slow but merciless. Jimin took a step forward and crouched down in front of Jungkook, looking into the mess of tears and trembling breath. Tell me what happened, he said. I won't say anything to him, not yet, but I need to understand. Jungkook looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed, almost swollen shut. It wasn't supposed to be me, he murmured. They were watching Taehyung, not me, but I got involved and now it's too late. What do you mean they? Jungkook's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He shook his head like a child refusing medicine and leaned back, pressing his head against the cool mirror behind him. The breath he released came with a shudder so deep it rattled his whole frame. Jimin stayed still. He saw the fear in Jungkook's eyes. Not guilt, not shame, fear. Real, visceral, clawing fear. He stood up slowly, glancing at the door again. It felt like they were being watched. He didn't like that. I'll give you tonight, Jimin said quietly. But tomorrow, if you don't tell him, I will. Jungkook didn't respond. And as Jimin left the room, he didn't see the way Jungkook reached for his phone, unlocking it with a shaking thumb. He stared at a message thread with a number not saved to his contacts. The last message read, If you tell Taehyung, we'll make sure he disappears too. Jungkook didn't cry anymore. He just sat there, still and hollow, the weight of the lie pressing so deeply into his chest that it felt like he'd never breathe properly again. I trusted you, Jungkook. Out of everyone you. The voice cut through the dim backstage corridor like broken glass dragged across marble. Taehyung's silhouette stood at the edge of the shadowed hallway, bathed in the sickly green of the emergency exit light above his head. His jaw was clenched so tightly, it seemed his whole face trembled from the strain. Behind him, the muffled echo of their fans' screams still rang faintly from the main stage, like a ghost they'd left behind. Jungkook's breath caught. He had been running half from the chaos Jimin had set into motion, half from himself, and now, as if fate had been hunting him all along, he stood face to face with the one person he couldn't lie to anymore. Taehyung, he whispered, swallowing down the taste of iron and dread in his mouth. It's not what you think. No? Taehyung laughed, and it was so bitter, so broken, it made the fluorescent lights overhead flicker as if the voltage in the air had changed. Then help me understand why Jimin came to me during rehearsals looking like he'd just seen someone die, why he asked if I'd noticed you acting strange, why he kept saying he's scared, Tae. He's really scared. What the hell are you hiding? Jungkook looked down, unable to meet Taehyung's eyes. I was trying to protect you. I don't need protection, Taehyung barked. I need the truth. For a moment, Jungkook looked like he might say it, that he might finally tear off the bandage and let the truth bleed, but his lips just trembled, opening and closing like the wings of a trapped moth. Then his phone buzzed in his pocket. He froze. Taehyung noticed. Who is that? He asked, his voice low. No one, Jungkook replied too quickly, and Taehyung's eyes darkened. Let me see. No. Let me see it, Jungkook! But Jungkook stepped back. That single movement changed everything. It wasn't just a refusal, it was an admission. Taehyung's fists clenched at his sides. What did you do? He asked, his voice suddenly hoarse. God, please just tell me, did you betray me? It's not about betrayal, Jungkook choked. It's about survival. Taehyung's brows furrowed. What does that mean? But Jungkook didn't answer. He turned and walked away down the corridor, his footsteps silent against the cold floor. Taehyung didn't chase him. He just stood there, the air around him heavy with the taste of something rotting, trust maybe. In the dorm that night, silence pressed like cotton against the walls. No one said anything at dinner. Namjoon tried to lighten the mood with a joke, but even his words fell flat. Jimin sat beside Taehyung, eyes darting between the two of them. Jungkook was the last to arrive, his hoodie up, earbuds in. He sat at the far end of the table, didn't touch his food. Taehyung stared at him for a long time. He was no longer angry. Now it was something else, something colder. Yoongi finally broke the silence. This can't go on. Everyone looked up. You're all walking around like ghosts, he said, his voice dry but firm. Whatever this is, it's tearing the group apart. Either fix it or leave it at the door. We have Japan next week, and I'm not walking on stage with this energy. Tell that to him, Taehyung muttered, nodding toward Jungkook. Jungkook flinched. Jin pushed back his chair and stood. Enough. This is beyond personal. If there's something dangerous going on, we all deserve to know. Jimin closed his eyes. It is dangerous. Every head turned to him. I wasn't going to say anything, Jimin said, voice trembling. But I can't sit here and watch Jungkook tear himself apart anymore. Jimin, Jungkook warned, voice low. I'm sorry, he said. I really am. But it's not just about you. It's about all of us now. He looked at the others, one by one, before finally turning to Taehyung. There's someone following Jungkook. A stunned silence fell. What the hell are you talking about? Taehyung said. I'm talking about blackmail, Jimin said. Threats! Someone's been sending him messages for weeks. He hasn't slept properly. He's scared all the time. He didn't want to tell you because the threats mention you too. Taehyung parled. Me? Jungkook stood up. That's enough. No, Jimin snapped, standing too. They need to know. We all do. Jungkook stared at him with fire in his eyes. You have no idea what you've just done. And with that, he left the dining room. That night, a storm rolled in. The rain lashed the windows as Jungkook sat alone in the practice studio, knees pulled to his chest, the glow of his phone the only light. He scrolled through the messages again, each one more venomous than the last. We know where he lives. We saw you with him. Do it, or we'll release everything. Tell Taehyung, and he disappears next. His thumb hovered over the block button, over the report function, over every possible digital lifeline. But nothing felt safe. Nothing felt real. Suddenly, the door opened, and Taehyung stood there. He was soaked from the rain, shirt clinging to his frame, but he didn't seem to care. You should have told me. Jungkook didn't respond. You really thought I'd want to live in the dark while you drowned in this alone? Still, silence. Who is it, Jungkook? Taehyung asked. Who's doing this to you? To us? Finally, Jungkook met his eyes. It's someone from inside, he said. Someone close. What? I don't know who, but they know everything. Our schedules, our movements, your habits. What you say off camera. They've been watching for a long time. Taehyung took a step back, the color draining from his face. Inside the company? I don't know, Jungkook whispered, but they said if I didn't do what they asked, they'd destroy you. What did they ask you to do? Jungkook looked down. To get you alone, to make you vulnerable, to record you saying something, anything. They wanted leverage. Taehyung was shaking now. Did you? No, Jungkook said, almost shouting. I couldn't. I wouldn't. That's why they started threatening me instead. I think they realized I wouldn't betray you, and now they're coming after me. Taehyung sank into the couch, staring at the floor. We have to tell someone, he said. Who? Jungkook snapped. The police? The company? What if they're part of it? Taehyung was quiet for a long time. Then we find them ourselves. The next morning, a message appeared on Jungkook's phone. You think you can outplay us? Attached was a photo. Taehyung laughing, exiting a coffee shop. The timestamp was from 2 hours ago. The angle was close. Too close. Jungkook dropped the phone. His heart pounded. His lungs burned. His world once again tilted sideways. He had thought the worst was over. But the game had only just begun. I swear to you, if you don't start talking right now, I'll drag this whole thing into the light myself. Taehyung's voice was sharp, dangerous, the kind of calm before a Category 5 storm. The overhead lights in their rehearsal studio buzzed faintly as he stood, arms crossed, blocking the door. Jungkook stood opposite him, still holding his phone. The image of Taehyung at the coffee shop burned into the screen and into his brain. They were there, Taehyung, Jungkook said, voice cracking. While you were drinking your Americano like it was just another day they were watching. You didn't see them, but they saw you. Jimin had arrived moments before, silent but attentive, standing against the mirrored wall like a shadow. His eyes flicked between the two with the tension of someone watching a lit fuse hiss toward a powder keg. Jin, Namjoon, and Hosok were on their way, summoned by Jimin through a cryptic message that simply read, We need everyone, now. Taehyung took a breath. So what? We sit and wait until they strike again? We do nothing? I'm not doing nothing, Jungkook shot back. I'm trying to keep you alive. I'm not a child. No, you're not, but you don't understand what they're capable of. Then make me understand. Stop treating me like someone you need to protect from the truth, and start treating me like someone who can fight beside you. Jungkook's lips trembled. I didn't tell you before because I was scared. Not for me, for you, because they know everything. They know your habits, Tae. They know how you move when you sleep, which entrance you use at the dorm when you don't want to be seen. They know your mother's address. That last sentence landed like a brick. Taehyung's entire posture shifted, the fire in his eyes replaced with something far more human. How long? Jungkook looked down. 3 months. Jimin exhaled, finally stepping forward. I started piecing it together about a month ago, he said. Jungkook's been withdrawing. You all saw it. Missed practices, excuses, panic attacks he tried to hide. You knew, Taehyung said to Jimin, and you didn't tell me? I tried to get him to speak, Jimin replied. But every time he got close, something happened. A new message, a new threat. You don't understand. Taethys wasn't just blackmail, it was psychological warfare. They wanted to break him. The door opened, and the others arrived, expressions already wary. Hoseok looked from face to face. What's going on? Namjoon immediately sensed the atmosphere and pulled the door closed behind them. What happened now? Jungkook walked to the center of the room. He unlocked his phone, opened the message, and held it up. Namjoon took the phone. The room fell dead silent. That's from this morning, Jungkook said. They're not just watching anymore, they're getting closer. Yoongi stepped forward, arms crossed. This is inside the company. It has to be. No one else has access to this kind of detail. But who? Hoseok asked. It could be a manager, a coordinator, even a driver. We trust so many people. Too many. Jin leaned back against the mirror. We need to talk to Bang PD. No, Jungkook said, voice shaking. We can't trust anyone until we know who it is. If we tell the wrong person, they'll know we're onto them, and then we won't have time to react. Namjoon handed the phone back to Jungkook. Then we investigate ourselves. Taehyung scoffed. And how do we do that? Hire a private eye? Go full Mission Impossible on our own company? Yoongi shrugged. Wouldn't be the craziest thing we've done. But there was no humor in his voice. Jimin spoke again. There's another layer to this. Everyone looked at him. The person behind the messages, I think they're connected to what happened with Hyejin. The room froze. Hyejin? An old name. A wound. A trainee. Someone they'd all known, bright, talented, soft-spoken. He was supposed to debut years ago, but disappeared suddenly. No news, no goodbye, just gone. The company said it was a family emergency, but they all knew better. Jungkook's voice dropped to a whisper. I got a message last week. It said, Hyejin was just the beginning. Namjoon's jaw clenched. Then we're not just dealing with a threat, we're dealing with a system. And we're part of it, Jimin added, willing or not. Taehyung stepped forward, his hand gently resting on Jungkook's shoulder. We take this apart, piece by piece, together. Jungkook didn't answer. His eyes were wet, but he nodded. Namjoon moved quickly, assigning tasks like a general preparing for war. Jin and Hoseok would monitor internal comms. Jimin and Yoongi would check the dorm for surveillance physical or digital. Taehyung and Jungkook would act as bait. What? Taehyung blinked. You want us to? If they're watching and they think you're falling apart, they'll get reckless, Namjoon said. They'll reveal themselves. But what if they go after Jungkook? Taehyung asked. We'll be watching, Jin said. And we won't let that happen. The next few days were tense. Taehyung and Jungkook went about their routine but exaggerated the cracks, fights in public, cold silences during interviews. A planned argument backstage at Music Bank that left Taehyung storming off set. It was all performance, but it hurt like hell. After one particularly intense day, Jungkook sat alone in the dorm kitchen, drinking water and staring at the empty chair across from him. I hate this, he said softly when Jimin came in. Pretending, hurting him like that, even if it's fake hate, still feels real. Jimin didn't respond at first. He sat down, taking in the tired curve of Jungkook's shoulders, the way his eyes wouldn't meet anyone's anymore. You still love him? Jimin asked gently. Jungkook nodded. More than anything. And you think he doesn't know that? Jungkook swallowed hard. I think I broke something, and I don't know how to fix it. Jimin leaned forward. Then survive this, make it to the other side, and show him you were always on his side. That night, the trap sprung. A notification came through. An unknown number. Another threat. But this time, something different. You're getting sloppy. Meet us. Alone. Attached was an address, an abandoned building in Mapo-gu, midnight. Jungkook stared at the screen, heart pounding. He stood, walked to Taehyung's room, knocked. I'm going, he said when the door opened. Tonight. Taehyung stared at him for a long time, then nodded. Then I'm going with you. Jungkook shook his head. They said alone. I don't care. You can't. But Taehyung grabbed his wrist. You're not walking into this alone, not anymore. And so, at midnight, under the pale halo of streetlights and rain, they went. What they found inside that building would change everything. The betrayal. The voice they recognized. And the face that stepped out of the shadows, someone they never imagined could be part of it. Not just someone close. Someone they once called family. The war had only begun. You, Taehyung whispered, voice caught somewhere between disbelief and fury. It was you all along? The figure standing before them under the flickering industrial light wasn't a stranger, not even close. The shadows fell away, and the worn concrete of the abandoned warehouse was suddenly suffocating, as if every wall had turned inwards to listen. "Hello, boys," said Seo-yin, their former creative director. The man who had shaped their early days helped choreograph some of their breakthrough stages, designed aesthetics that had become iconic across the globe. He had been there when they were just kids with raw nerves and hungry hearts. He had celebrated with them, hugged them, cried with them. And then, 3 years ago, he disappeared. The company had told them he moved on to another project overseas. No bad blood, no warning, just a quiet goodbye over email and then radio silence. Taehyung's fists curled at his sides. Why? Why would you? "I warned you not to bring him," Seojin said, looking at Taehyung like he was something disappointing on the bottom of his shoe. "But I expected nothing less. You were always predictable." Jungkook stepped forward, positioning himself between Seojin and Taehyung. "You were the one sending the messages?" "Not all of them," Seojin replied. "Some of those came from people far more dangerous than me. I'm just the messenger and the architect." "Architect?" Jungkook echoed, his voice tightening. "Of what?" Seojin tilted his head, smiling like a man who believed every move had already been played. "Of your rise, and now of your fall." A heavy silence followed. "You helped build us," Taehyung said. "You were part of the family."
"And look what that loyalty got me," Seojin snapped. "Do you remember what Bang PD said to me when I asked for a credit line on your second album? He said, 'They don't need to know who you are. Stay in the shadows.' That's when I knew I was never going to be remembered." His voice cracked for the first time. "I gave you everything, my vision, my soul. I made you beautiful, and they erased me like I was nothing." Jungkook's chest rose and fell. "So you came after us? After Taehyung?" Seojin's eyes narrowed. "He was the easiest to fracture, always emotional, always desperate to be understood. I knew if I got to you, Jungkook, the rest would unravel." Taehyung's lip curled. "You're insane." "No," Seojin said calmly. "I'm liberated. Do you know what it's like to watch the machine you built spit you out and keep going as if you were never there?" He stepped closer. "You all became gods, untouchable, but gods fall hardest." Taehyung lunged then, not out of fear, but fury in Jungkook barely stopped him in time. The sound of his voice cracked the air. "He suffered, you bastard, for months. He couldn't sleep. He thought he was losing his mind. And you what sat behind a screen laughing about it?" "I didn't laugh," Seojin said coldly. "I studied, I documented, I learned how far guilt could stretch before it snapped." "Why not come after all of us?" Jimin's voice echoed from behind. They turned sharply. He'd been there the whole time, hidden in the dark, recording everything with a hidden camera in his jacket. Yoongi followed next, stepping into view. Jin, Namjoon, Hoseok. One by one, they entered the light. Wordless, grim, not surprised, but angry in a way that made the room seem smaller. "You think we didn't plan for this?" Namjoon said. "That we let Jungkook walk into this alone?" Seojin laughed. "I counted on it." And then, suddenly, the warehouse lights snapped on blinding, clinical, too bright. A voice over a loudspeaker crackled above them. "You're all very predictable." It wasn't Seojin's voice. It was a woman. Another figure stepped out from a hidden door behind the scaffolding. Her heels clicked loudly against the floor. Taehyung inhaled sharply. It was Manager Choi, their current manager. The woman who had traveled with them, lived on the road with them, fielded press, fought for their interviews, who'd once nursed Taehyung through a fever in Osaka. "I didn't want to be the face of this," she said, "but I suppose it was inevitable." Jungkook backed away, his skin crawling. "This whole time," he whispered. "We've been building something," she said. "Not just revenge. Revolution. You think idols are free? You're puppets with perfect skin, and every puppet has a master." Namjoon's voice was ice. What do you want? To tear it all down. She tossed a folder onto the floor. Blackmail, screenshots, voice recordings, edited videos, snippets of casual conversations twisted out of context. You release that, and millions of fans will. Will what? She interrupted. Hate you? Mourn you? Replace you with the next pretty face? You think you're irreplaceable? That's your greatest delusion. Taehyung stared at her like seeing someone he didn't recognize. You said you love this team. I did, she said, until I saw what the industry does to people who don't play nice. Seojin spoke again. You have a choice. Walk away, vanish, let the illusion die with dignity. And if we don't, Jungkook asked. Then we break you, Choi said. One scandal at a time. There was a pause. And then Jimin stepped forward. You underestimated something. Oh? Jimin glanced at Jungkook, then at Taehyung. Us. Yoongi pulled a small remote from his pocket and pressed a button. Instantly, voices exploded over hidden speakers. The entire warehouse had been wired. Seojin's rant, Choi's confession, every threat, every twisted justification. I thought I was predictable, Jungkook said. Choi's expression didn't falter. Do you think this will stop it? Jin picked up the folder. We can spin this faster than you can disappear. We're not just idols anymore. We have lawyers, people, power. You're still puppets, she hissed. Taehyung stepped forward, his face cold and unreadable. Then maybe it's time the puppets cut their strings. Choi lunged for the remote. Too late. Sirens wailed outside. The warehouse flooded with blue and red lights. Police. Company security. It was over. Almost. Because in the chaos that followed Seojin in cuffs, Choi screaming about justice, reporters swarming the lot, Jungkook sat in the back of a van, staring out the window as Taehyung climbed in beside him. You saved me, Jungkook whispered. Taehyung reached for his hand. No, he said, we saved each other. But the damage wasn't done. Because while Choi and Seojin were dragged away, a third figure, unknown, unseen, dialed a private number. They took the bait, the voice said. Phase 2 begins now. And on a monitor, deep in a room filled with surveillance feeds, a video played. A clip of Jungkook. Alone. Crying. Talking into the dark, whispering a name no one else had heard. Hey Jin, I'm sorry. And just like that, the next game began. You're still hiding something, Taehyung said, voice low but certain, as the van pulled away from the warehouse and Seoul's lights returned to a quiet blur outside the tinted windows. The others were in separate vehicles, and for the first time in weeks, it was just the two of them again. Jungkook didn't answer. He kept his gaze forward, knuckles white on his thighs, jaw tight. Whatever that woman and Seojin did, Taehyung continued, watching him carefully, whatever lies they spun, you still haven't told me the one thing that matters. Jungkook turned to him slowly, eyes hollow. There's one more piece, isn't there? Taehyung asked. Jungkook looked away, down at his lap. I didn't want you to look at me like that. Like what? Like I betrayed you. Taehyung didn't respond immediately. The weight of those words echoed louder than the soft hum of the road. The streetlights kept passing over them, painting silver streaks across the van's leather seats. Jungkook finally spoke again, his voice barely audible. The night Hyejin disappeared, it wasn't just him they threatened. It was me too. Taehyung turned fully toward him now. They told me he was going to talk about everything, about what the company was doing, how trainees were being pushed, manipulated, silenced. They said if he opened his mouth, all of us would go down. Jungkook's throat tightened. They told me I needed to keep him quiet. The silence that followed was suffocating. What did you do? Taehyung asked, and even he didn't know if he wanted the answer. I met with him, Jungkook whispered. They sent me to his apartment, told me to convince him. I thought it meant, I don't know, talk him down, scare him maybe. Jungkook closed his eyes, remembering the smell of rain that night, how the elevator had creaked, how Hyejin had smiled when he opened the door like nothing was wrong, like he didn't already know. He knew I wasn't there just to talk. He offered me tea. We sat on his balcony. He told me he had nothing left to lose, that they'd already taken his dreams, his future. All he wanted was to burn the lies down. Jungkook stopped. His voice trembled. And then he asked me to help him. Did you? Taehyung asked. I didn't answer, Jungkook said. I just left. Another long pause. A breath. A memory. The next morning, he was gone. Taehyung sat back slowly, his fingers curling into fists against his legs. You think they killed him? Jungkook nodded once. Or made him disappear. I don't know which is worse. And you never told anyone. They told me if I did, it would be your face next, in the missing posters. Jungkook turned his head, finally meeting Taehyung's gaze. So I stayed quiet, every day, every stage, every award. I smiled, I lied, I told myself it was for you. Taehyung looked at him long and hard, 1,000 thoughts flickering in his eyes. Betrayal, sadness, understanding, love. You carried that, he said, alone. Jungkook nodded, and the dam behind his eyes cracked. I thought maybe if I was good enough, if I sang hard enough, danced clean enough, smiled bright enough, maybe that part of me would drown, maybe it would be quiet, but it never was. The van slowed to a halt outside the dorm. Neither moved. I thought I hated you for not telling me, Taehyung whispered, but now I just hate that you thought I couldn't handle it. Jungkook's voice cracked. I didn't want to lose you. You already did, Taehyung said, voice calm but devastating. Then, more softly, but I'm still here. They stepped out of the van together into the cold Seoul night. The others were already inside. News was spreading about Seojin, Choi, the tapes. The internet had erupted into chaos, a frenzy of hashtags and conspiracy threads. The label was in full PR meltdown mode, but none of it mattered to Jungkook now. Because somewhere beneath it all, there was still a ghost that hadn't been laid to rest. That night, sleep didn't come. Jungkook sat in the practice studio alone, hoodie up, headphones around his neck. The room was quiet except for the soft whir of the air conditioner and the city beyond the glass. Then the door opened. Yoongi entered, silent as always. He sat beside Jungkook without a word, pulled a flash drive from his coat pocket and handed it over. I found this, he said, hidden in Seojin's laptop. Jungkook hesitated before plugging it in. A video file played. Hyejin, in the same room, alone, filming himself. Tonight might be the end, his voice said. I'm not scared, just tired. If anyone sees this, I hope you know, I tried. I really tried, but I can't carry it anymore. He looked down, then back at the camera. They told me someone would come, someone I trust. I hope it's you, Jungkook. I hope you don't become like them. The screen went dark. Jungkook sat there, unmoving. Yoongi stood. We're going to release it. Everything. The footage, the threats, the internal abuse, the system dies tomorrow. Will we survive it? Jungkook asked. Yoonja shrugged. Do we deserve to? Jungkook looked at him, surprised. You knew, he said. I suspected, Yoongi replied, and I said nothing. That makes me complicit. Jungkook wiped at his eyes. We're all broken, aren't we? Yeah, Yoongi said, walking away. But broken doesn't mean dead. The next morning, Namjoon held a press conference. No filters, no handlers. The entire group sat behind him, dressed in black, solemn, prepared. He told the truth. About the manipulation, about Seojin and Choi, about the power games behind the scenes, about Hyejin. He didn't flinch. Neither did Jungkook when he stepped forward next. He played the final video. Hyejin's words echoed in front of millions of people across the globe. Silence followed. Then the world cracked open. Fans wept, raged, fought. Media outlets scrambled. The label stocks plummeted. Former trainees came forward. Anonymous producers, stylists, choreographers. The industry was on fire. And in the middle of it all stood Jungkook exposed, raw, vulnerable, and Taehyung beside him, his hand clasped in silent solidarity. They didn't apologize for the truth. They let it burn. A week later, they gathered on the rooftop of the dorm for the first time in what felt like lifetimes. You think we'll make it out of this? Hoseok asked. Namjoon lit a cigarette. I think we already did. Taehyung looked at Jungkook. I'm proud of you, he said. Jungkook didn't speak. He just leaned against him, the stars watching from above. For the first time in years, his chest didn't ache with guilt. The silence wasn't punishment. It was peace. And somewhere, deep in the heart of a city that had tried to swallow them whole, the wind carried a whisper of a boy once lost. You found the truth. Don't let them bury it again. They wouldn't. Never again.